Thanks for being here today with me, Gene. This is a great topic that I love helping patients out with, but there's no one that I can think of that does it better than you. So for all of you that don't know me, I'm Dr. John Pachorik. I'm a chiropractor. I'm a functional medicine doc. This is my good friend, Gene. He is a consultant with Standard Process. I like him so much because he's got his master's degree from my alma mater, New York Chiropractic College. So he's got a lot of great information. Like I said, a master's degree in applied clinical nutrition. So whenever I get stuck on something, I reach out to him, and he's just a great guy to have around. We're going to talk about a couple of detoxification, purification programs through Standard Process today. I've just had fantastic results in my office. My patients love it. It's just a wonderful way to reset some habits, get on track with your life, get in control of your life. And I like it because you learn a lot with it. You learn a lot about yourself, but also a lot about eating, about diet, about nutrition. And it's something you can do over and over again. You can always pick up where you left off. Everyone has a rough time. Everyone cheats. So it's a great tool to just have in your bag for when you're ready to reset. So I'm going to start with just a couple huge successes that I've had really in the past few months. I've walked, oh my goodness, I couldn't even tell you how many patients through the purifications. This first patient here is a male patient, 70 years old, and his story was just fantastic. He came to me, we had a great talk. He told me, he had high triglycerides, but I really never understood how high his triglycerides were until I got his blood work. And they were, as you can see, 1,044, which was just unbelievable to me. So he told me he's had this number, triglycerides, 800, 900,000, probably for the last 20 years. And he was really hoping we could work some magic and help him out. So, we set him down. I walked him through the 21-day purification program. He did fantastic with it. And as you can see, his after results are unbelievable. He dropped his triglycerides almost 1,000 points. So before was 1,044. After, his triglycerides were 101. Blood glucose dropped from 261 to 90. His cholesterol dropped from 286 to 126. The big thing he wanted to see was triglyceride numbers go down. And I called him up when I got his after blood work, and he was about fell off his chair. He was so happy with life and just how we were able to reset things. And he's very happy with the results. One of the blood panels I pull will give you your coronary heart disease risk. So his risk dropped to 2.7, which is compared to others less than half the average risk for some kind of cardiovascular event, which is just fantastic. Gene, if you give me the next slide. This was a lady I worked with at the end of the summer, and she was just fun, fantastic. A lot of times as I work with people, I don't find out their real goals and what they're really hoping until the end when they tell me, and I think they're shocked, they're surprised with some of the results. So with this lady, she lost 12 pounds. She was just sleeping fantastic. Like a lot of her pain, her joint pain, body pain decreased. The big thing that surprised me, and I think it was the biggest thing in her mind, was her skin cleared. So she just kept going on about how clear her skin was. She used to have patches on her face, on her arms, on her trunk, and then the bags under her eyes. She just could not get over that. In 21 days, she was able to change her body appearance so dramatically. Now she continues to improve. We did pre and post blood work on her. Glucose started at 115. At the end, we dropped it down to 85. What I may have been most surprised by with her is her A1C. It was 5.7 to begin with, but we dropped it to 4.5. I find A1C is a slower mover as far as when you're looking at blood labs. For a lot of people, it takes weeks, months to really start moving. So that's a pretty dramatic drop in 21 days. Cholesterol went from 271 to 190, and we almost halved her triglycerides. It went from 150 to 86. So these are just a couple of the more recent patients I've had an opportunity to work with, but the results just speak for themselves. So I'm going to turn things over to Gene, let him give us a good lesson, teach us some great things. But really just hope this is a great benefit for everyone, people that are on the fence, just walking through a program, just a fantastic program like this, and helping you guys change your mind. So once again, Gene, thanks, and I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. John. So these testimonials are great, and they really point to the fact of what we'll get into, and that is when you do things with whole food, when you do things with programs that are actually not just meant to force things, but really help the body do things naturally, you get better results. And that being the weight loss for one. Weight loss is a huge side effect of these programs, is what made them popular. But we don't promote them as that, because it's really just a side effect of what happens when you feed the body and you do things right. And then you see amazing things happen when you do things with programs and change the diet and you work with Dr. Paciorek. But like A1C, like he's talking about, that is such a gold standard for blood sugar, because you can't cheat it. They use 12 to 16 weeks to monitor that, and to see changes that dramatically, that's actually a big bump. And just 21 days time is huge. And what you have to keep in mind is, can medications do that? And even if they could, is that the best way to do that? We want to show you 3 different options you have, whether you just want to get healthier, if you want to maintain your health, just different goals you may have, you can achieve it with these programs. And we'll go through what they are and how to be successful at those if you choose to do them. So what's key is really, you hear the word detox a lot. So these, you can call them detox programs, purification programs, are called different things. But the bottom line is there are different things in our diets and in environments that are toxins. And we can actually pinpoint how those different things cause different body types. So for the longest time, some people will hear different diets and they'll try different exercise programs, and they don't work. And the reason they don't work is they're not doing the right things. We know in some cases livers are affected, thyroid, we have ovary, adrenal. So some of you may look at these and look at the body type and say, that's what I have. I identify with that body type. And they all come down to diet and toxins. So these programs are designed to specifically take care of what these metabolic imbalances are, so you can get results, the weight loss, the cholesterol changes, the energy, the better sleep that you're trying to achieve. Now, what we'll go through kind of quickly as we can, but as concisely as we can, are, what are these major roadblocks to achieving optimal health? Because a lot of us just don't know what those are. There's a lot of them in our environment. We're exposed to them, we eat them, and we just aren't aware of them. How are we being exposed to them? That's a shock to some of us. What effects do they have on our health? I'll talk about that, because a lot of us don't know how to correlate weight, for example, cholesterol and high blood pressure with food. It's not always genetics, and genetics don't play the huge, strong link that we think they once did. And what are the effective solutions? The big thing about these programs is Dr. Paciorek said, you can do them as much as you want. The whole idea is to teach you a lifestyle. So it's something that you learn and something you can continue. It's not do one of these programs for however many days the one that you choose is, and then just fall off the wagon and go back to your old habits. It's what are you going to learn? It's what are you going to continue? And that's really how you get sustainable results and healthy results. So it's not a quick fix. It's really a lifestyle is what you're achieving here. So these, really are kind of well known now, at least hopefully we know, but all the environmental toxins. So some of these statistics are older and they're worse now. But as far as in 1989, the EPA estimated in 1 year, almost 6 billion pounds of chemicals were either dumped into the public sewage or released in the ground, surface waters, or air. The problem is we have a lot of these man-made chemicals, and they've been made illegal. Like DDT is a classic example, but there's no antagonist for it in nature. So they say, okay, we won't use this anymore, but it's actually still found in newborns. It's still found in certain soils, especially in the Great Lakes area. So if you're a local patient of Dr. Paciorek in Ohio, you can especially relate to that. There's just a lot of things in there, and there are big environmental issues raised because of that, because of the chemicals that were used in farming and just runoff in those areas. And they actually find that women on average have about 10 pounds of excess weight just from living in that region because of the toxins. And I'll tie in the toxins and how they relate to the weight. And then now a newer one is pharmaceuticals in our water. Again, no antagonists for it. There's different grades of pharmaceuticals. Some they require you bring to a pharmacy if you don't need them anymore, because people are able to come off of them if it's especially something like the solid diet. Or if someone passes and doesn't need them anymore. Most people don't do the proper measures. They will flush them down the toilet. Even if anyone just takes any meds, they're still excreted in stools and urine. But this, as of, let's see, it was 24 to 28 states tested. That was 2008. So as of about 4 years ago, it's all of them. So every single place that you will test water, and that was huge, obviously, in Michigan as of late, the drinking water quality there. But even places where it's not, overt public issue of water issues, it's still in there. So why should we care? So what does that have to do with our health? So those things, when I said there's no antagonist for it, nature just doesn't biodegrade. They're called persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, to say persist in the environment. Now, these will actually inhibit weight loss. Now, the reason they do that is the body can only manage these things so well. So if we're not getting certain things in our diet, like vegetables, fruits, specifically organic things like that, things that feed our body and flush those out, if the body doesn't know what to do with it, it will find it in a safe place. It will actually just put it in fat tissue. So your body's actually really smart. Holding on to the weight is its way of compensating for those chemicals. So there's no way it's going to force that weight off if it knows if I get rid of this weight, I'll have no place else to put those toxins. So some people think they just need to eat less or they need to exercise more, and they really force it, nothing happens. And it's because the body knows, well, I'm not getting rid of this fat. This is how I get rid of the toxin, because I need to hold on to the toxins. So what they say is when fat or toxins go, fat follows. So you have to detoxify. You have to get rid of these toxins in order to lose that stubborn weight. And it's not just weight, it's chronic diseases. There's a lot of links of heavy metals and different things to neurological disorders. It goes on and on. Some people manage to lose the weight, but you'll become sick. So you really have to do it in a safe manner. And that's why these programs are so important. You'll get results, but it's done in a safe way. So we'll talk about what a lot of different toxins are. And sugar is actually a toxin because of how it interrupts our endocrine system, what it does to our hormones, and how inflammatory it is. So just to give you some perspective, the average person in the 1700s ate 4 pounds of sugar a year. Today, 25% of us consume over a half pound of added sugar daily, adding up to 180 pounds per year. This is why 1 in 4 Americans is either pre-diabetic or has type 2 diabetes. Now, why did this happen? The reason this happened was there was a whole craze where, low fat, they correlated with low triglycerides, low cholesterol, and heart disease, heart attacks. But they really were looking at the wrong kind of fats. They weren't looking at omega-3s. And what happened was people took all the fats out of food, businesses did. So if you take the fat out of food, that's what makes food taste good. So what do you add that's cheaper and will make it last longer on the shelf? Is sugar. And then we went a step further, it was all artificial junk sugar. So sugar is a huge issue in our food supply. And part of these programs are helping to stop the craving of the sugar and help eliminate those things. Now, this slide here, it's a slide of some of our favorite things, but I want you to look at this and know that this isn't actually food. Some of us have grown up eating these things. Some of them eat them because they're convenient, because they taste good. But I want you to get some general things from this recording. And one of them is that food is a business. So a lot of these companies have no interest in mind in what your health is. There's no laws that say once these foods are stripped of nutrients so they taste good or last longer on the shelf for profit purposes, that they need to actually replace them with anything that resembles a real nutrient or that is healthy. There are no guidelines for that. So, looking at this and Fruit Loops and hot dogs and things like that, they're not really food. Now, the idea of this is we don't want to show this to you and scare you and say, well, I love hot dogs, and we don't want you to think you can never eat these things again. That's not the point of this. The point of this is we want to get you in a place where you say, okay, I can have the hot dog, or I can have the beer, I can have the glass of wine every once in a while. But when I'm presented with those things, I don't crave them. I don't feel like I need them. And you know how to make better options. More importantly, when you do have these things at a birthday party, a barbecue, 4th of July, your body has the means to eliminate the junk that's in it because you know how to eat healthy now and you've been eating properly. But just some numbers here. The US allows over 14,000 chemical additives for food supply. And the average American consumes more than 150 pounds of food additives and 180 pounds of sugar annually, as we touched on before. So just know that these are toxins too. They're not food, they're not nutrients. You don't have to eliminate them completely from your diet, but you do have to have enough good in your diet that you can have some of these every once in a while. So what effects does all the toxicity and poor diet have on us? And Dr. Pachor can add to this because he sees, I'm sure, a lot of things chiropractically that are due to these. But what some of us might know right off the bat: one, weight gain, which you touched on, fatigues, headaches, allergies, joint and muscle pain, hormonal function, anxiety and stress, edema, that's water weight. So when you have swelling, sometimes females and males will recognize rings fit differently. They're tight sometimes. They do the program. That's the first thing they notice. Shoes differently, rings, watches, because again, your body's holding on to that water weight just as it wants to hold on to it and dilute the toxins in it like it does with the fat or the adipose tissue. So again, you get rid of the toxins, and edema, the water weight will actually flush out faster than the actual fat does when you do the program. And Dr. Short touched on this: skin rashes. He has a patient that had rashes. The skin is an organ, okay? So if we're just putting junk in our body, there's chemicals in our body, whether it's perfumes, whether it's, the shampoo we use or the foods we eat, if your liver and your organs of elimination can't handle it, it's going to want to get out. And if, you don't have enough adipose tissue and that's not working out for the body, it'll come out through the skin. It'll come out any way it can. So that's why skin rashes are an issue with poor diet and toxicity, sleep problems, and then, of course, cholesterol. So sugar especially is irritating and inflammatory to the body. So one thing I want to clear up with why cholesterol is so successful with these programs we'll go over is when you're putting these things in your body, think of sugar and insulin as like sandpaper in your vessels, in your vascular system, just flowing through your body. Cholesterol is actually the good guy. It's like a Band-Aid. So when you're doing all this damage, the cholesterol is there to patch it up. So cholesterol is simply just smoke to the fire. And the fire is inflammation from the foods and the toxicity. And then when we clean up our diet, we remove the inflammation, we allow the body to heal. The cholesterol isn't needed as much because cholesterol is necessary in the body. We need to make hormones, purify blood, break down, different things in the body. It's absolutely needed. So you don't want to eliminate it. We just need to clean up the diet. And I'm sure, Dr. John, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the chiropractic patients you'd see. And, sometimes I hear practitioners say they adjust and adjust and adjust, and patients can't figure out, well, what's going on.
Sure. Your vertebral systems is like the circuit breaker box in your house. So you got to figure out what's causing the breakers to flip. Sometimes it's a slip and a fall. Sometimes it's overuse. Sometimes it's coming from inside your body, your organs, your organ system. Getting to the root cause, figuring out what's causing the inflammation makes all the difference in the world. And, stubborn cases, I've had them resolved by people going through the 21-day purification. You really, as a patient, you get more insight into your body, and you start seeing those cause and effect. You start understanding when you put this food in your body, this is a reaction you get, whether it's, joint pain, mid back pain, low back pain, shoulder pain, but yeah, definite cause and effect.
Okay, so I want to give you a visual now, and I alluded to genetics earlier, because a lot of us think we're victims to our genetics. We may have just been doing things wrong, we're doing things the right way, and we think, well, if our parents were this way or grandparents were that way, that's why I'm overweight, that's why I have high triglycerides or cholesterol, and that's not the case. It takes so long for genetics to change in the human genome. When we look at things that have changed so rapidly in the population and health declining, genes don't change that fast. So I'm just going to show you some data from the Center for Disease Control. And what we have this is when they first started this set of data in 1988. And in the red states, more than 35% of that population is considered to be overweight. So then when we jump ahead to just 8 years forward to 96, you can see it's about half the US. So more than half the US, or about half the US, more than 35% of those states are considered to be overweight. And then we just jump ahead 4 years later, 2000, it's all of them. Now, you ask yourself, is there an obesity gene? Did the things happen that fast? They can only guesstimate. They think it's about like 40,000 years to get a change in the human genome. When we look at things like disease and morbidity, things like weight and obesity, it was not a genetic factor. Genes make some individuals more susceptible to things, like breast cancers and things like that. But you only get those things if you eat those certain foods. So you eat the right foods and you don't turn those genes off or on. So you can actually turn a gene off or on with food in as little as 90 days. So even though you can't eliminate the gene or create a new gene like an obesity gene, even though it's harder for others to lose weight or even gain muscle, that's all determined by food to turn it off or on. And this data, it only goes up to 2000. And I went to the Center for Disease Control website and I got a more updated version, but it was so complicated with all the different versions of obesity we have now. There's overweight, there's obese, there's morbidly obese. There are about 12 different colors. You couldn't even make sense of it. We're like numb to it now. So I just kept the older data so we can see how fast progress and the impact to it. Plus I'm colorblind and I couldn't even make sense of it. There was just too much going on. But just know that, in the television shows, like My 600-Pound Life, we didn't have that back in the 80s. That wasn't a thing. But it's a different culture now. But we're not tied to our genetics. It's about the choices we make. And this program is about helping you make the right choices, but also eliminating the certain cravings and basically changing your biochemistry so you can make the right choices. The programs we'll talk about, so we're going to talk about 3 of them. And basically it's good, better, and best. And the reason we talk about good, better, and best is you have to meet a patient where they're ready. So Standard Process has 3 main programs. One of them, without a doubt, is the better one. It is more difficult, it's longer. But regardless of the program, they all focus on the liver. And the reason they focus on the liver is what we take in from our environment, whether it's food, whether it's something we eat or breathe in, it's the liver's job to process it and get it out. And what determines whether our liver is going to work or not has absolutely everything to do with the foods we eat, specifically green leafy vegetables. You can throw herbs in there as well, which the program has to help that process work better. But there's simple phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 it's like getting the toxins together in your body. And that's when it says, okay, we're going to get all this stuff together, make it less toxic and move it out. And phase 2 is when it gets it ready to leave the body. Now, the reason whole food is important is when you do the foods naturally as they're occurring in nature, You do phase 1 and phase 2 as it should happen. A lot of programs, they don't do the phases in conjunction. And if one phase happens before the other, you're actually in worse shape because all these things have come out of the fat tissue to leave the body. But if you just get them out of the fat tissue and don't resolve it from that point, then they're just toxins recirculating again. You'll feel like crud, and then they have to get, put back in the fat tissue. So this is important to understand the importance of liver and the proper foods to eat. So why is a program important to do? For one thing, you need certain guidelines. And it's one thing, to tell someone you need to not eat this, you need to eat that. It's not that simple. Our choices are determined by our hormones or biochemistry, and those things are determined by the foods we eat. But more importantly, it has to be specific foods because you have to break a cycle. So I'll just show you this cycle here to give you an idea of why this program is going to be different from maybe other things you've tried before. So you eat food, and we'll use the example of a bagel or cereal, just something that's a carb, okay? And that carb, all carbs are sugar, even vegetable carbs. So if you do certain vegetables that are too high in carbs, those aren't the best for you either. So you really have to watch your carbs. But you eat that bagel, and it says, okay, it's a sugar. So your body makes insulin. Your insulin, its sole purpose is to get that sugar into the cells to use for energy. But if you overwhelm it, your body says, okay, we don't need this anymore. We're going to shut down some of these receptors. So the cells resist the insulin. And of course, you do this over and over again. You've heard of insulin resistance. So you flood the body with too much insulin, more than the body can handle. So it shuts it down and doesn't receive all of it. So what happens is, again, the body's smart. It says, we're going to save this energy for later. It stores it as fat. But since it didn't get into all the cells for energy, you feel tired and hungry again because you didn't get the energy, but you did get some fat from it in case you need it for later. So what do people do next? Well, they eat, but do they make a better choice? Or do they say, okay, I need some more of that bagel. I need to get more of whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know what a convenient lunch is that maybe most Americans get, but they might go to worst case scenario, maybe McDonald's, some might do that. They might they might pack their lunch, but still might be too heavy in carbs. And people hear fruits and vegetables, but they go way too heavy on the fruits and they ignore the vegetables. So even if you're eating a lot of fruits, you fall in this cycle. So what we do with these programs is to break this cycle, you have to add in quality fats and proteins, and you have to add in quality minerals. And when you do the minerals and the fats and the proteins, you break the cycle so you can process the sugar properly. If any of you have heard of the term hangry, which is popular now because, just out of nowhere, people have become really cranky and you're like, well, what's going on? And then you find out they haven't eaten or they've eaten poorly. So when you're hangry, it's when you don't have the proper nutrients and you're not thinking straight. And when you don't think straight, you don't make proper food choices. So the whole point of these programs is to eliminate that.